So I came across this on Twitter from No Farmers, No Food, and yet another example of, hey, could you not have just put a link in as well? Anyway, so he says this, or they say, this Derbyshire tenant farmer, and remember, that's important, tenant farmer. It's another reason it's important, I would argue, that we have as many farmers that own their own land. None of this is an accident, you know, none of this. Anyway, risks losing his farming livelihood because of a solar power development on the farmland. Mass-scale solar panels shouldn't be developed on farmland. None of this is rocket science. It shouldn't be. It's scary how little people seem to care about this. It's witchcraft on levels beyond belief. That they can convince the public that, hey, do you know what's good? Instead of having arable farmland. Now think about the Second World War. They mandated at some stage that many people's home gardens, you know, anybody with a house with a garden had to grow something on it. They called it the Victory Gardens, yeah? And the population of the UK was nothing like it is now. Nothing, yeah? That was how important farming and producing things on the land, because remember, we are an island, yeah? But no, all that's thrown out the window. Because, hey, why stop progress? Think about honestly, I'll play this stopping occasionally, but yeah.
Landlord wants to change the land use away from producing food to producing energy. He has little power to stop it.
Think about that. Take a big step back, right? And think about energy. Oh, fuck. In an island that has very little sunshine, and on top of that has been getting chemtrailed for decades, but only recently they just said, hey, we've had an idea. Why doesn't the UK through some program, start dimming the skies? Yeah. And at the same time promoting or forcing on new builds and all the rest of it. No, solar power has to be the way to go, and heat pumps and all the rest of it, and the energy costs and the uselessness of solar panels, by and large. If they were to be anywhere, how about supermarket car parks, the supermarket roofs, all the other B&Qs, you bloody name it, all the council buildings, all those things could be wall to wall with solar panels. But are they? No. Let's spread them across arable farmland. Yeah? So let's play this again. And the presenter, in fact, the only individual I see talking any sense at all is the farmer.
Landlord wants to change the land use away from producing food to producing energy. He has little power to stop it. What will happen to this and surrounding fields if the developers get their way?
Well, it'll all be fenced off with 10-foot high deer fencing, covered in solar panels, and my livelihood will be destroyed.
Yeah, and he's absolutely right. His livelihood will be destroyed, and yet more areas of land, food-producing land, is turned over to bloody fairly useless solar panels under a sky that's being dimmed more by the day. Yeah? Seriously. They are deliberately bringing about a situation of food shortages, while everybody else can tell you what their favourite Netflix or game or whatever the hell, you know, but not realise how dangerous this is. Seriously, this ongoing madness.
Isn't the best agricultural land. It's not.
Yeah, well, it isn't the best agricultural land. Well, what do you see? Cattle, yeah? That's good use of agricultural land. If it's not fantastic for growing various crops, it's certainly good use for vegetation generally, supplemented by growing things that the cattle can deal with because they've got 4 stomachs to do so, yeah? This used to be common knowledge.
Producing huge amount of food overall. Perhaps it would be better if it was producing a large amount of energy.
A large amount of energy. Seriously. No, that's not the case. And remember, hailstones, windy weather, whatever else, these panels are screwed. And then, of course, let's not forget the cadmium and various other, well, highly toxic substances that goes into the ground and stays there for, well, decades. Sometimes longer. All of this is deliberate and by design.
Well, it's a thought, but I still think this sort of permanent pasture ground is better for the wildlife and the ecology of the whole thing. We have lapwings, curlews, skylarks, the brown hares. I think.
And remember, have you noticed this thing about all these Care Bear Green politicians, whether it's Labour, Conservative, the Green Party itself and other variations of this ongoing shit show? It's anti-life. Whether it's wildlife, I mean, think about all those bloody windmills. How many pictures have you seen of dead or permanently, well, unflyable eagles, but mostly dead eagles, but at the very least wings broken, you name it, all the rest of it. Many birds just quite literally blended through these things, yeah? Wildlife dying off by the day, but hey, no problem. Hey, it's about green energy. Never in the history of humanity has this made any bloody sense at all. Remember, the whole purpose of humanity to advance and all the rest of it was to be able, for example, to create energy sources that you didn't have to do any of this nonsense and were far more efficient. Oh, I don't know, nuclear power being one of them. Yeah? Remember, back in the days when they had nuclear power stations that were online for decades, yeah, and when it was in low situation of power needs, they would send some of that energy to hydroelectric power dams, reverse the generator, draw up the water again into the higher areas. And when energy was more needed and cost more and all the rest, they'd let it go back down again, blah, blah, blah. So much common sense only and up till a few decades ago, but this ongoing witchcraft.
Solar panels have got the part to play. I think house roofs.
Yeah, house roofs.
Factory roofs, brownfield sites are the best place for solar panels. They don't blend in with the natural environment, in my...
It's not just about blending in. They're a bloody blight. Yeah, I get it. But that's arable flat farmland that you can't have any crops growing on or cattle feeding on or, anything. No. Under chemtrailed skies.
My opinion.
The landowners have not yet applied for planning permission.
They've not yet, but you know where this is going. It's all planned ahead.
For the solar farm, and say they don't want to comment on a private matter.
They don't want to comment on a private matter. But you keep getting programmed of late through the education system over the last 20 plus years or so, and through councils and all the rest of it. You hear this term, stakeholders. Well, why would you encourage, private or otherwise, people to quite literally deface arable farmland and take it out of use of what it is primarily there for, arable farmland that feeds the people, that historically has always fed the people, yeah? To an extremely inefficient way of generating energy. And at what cost? In so many ways. None of this should be rocket science.
Hares, foxes.
But Andrew...
And even one of these other individuals that purports to be against this, but it says at the same time, oh yeah, there's this climate crisis, inference about humanity being the cause, blah, blah, blah. Remember, this is one of the individuals who's supposed to be against what's going on. But remember, you'll notice that I can see even places in Scotland where they're bumping their gums just now about the damage it's going to be causing to their area of wind farms and all these electricity pylons all over the place and so many other things. And the very people I suspect that get the groups together to supposedly fight against it are just controlled opposition to say, well, we did our best, but the shit still goes through. Rinse and repeat.
Andrew has found plenty of willing allies in his fight.
Ah, yeah, that come out of nowhere. We'll help you.
our fundraising pages and all our petitions, they're all on here as well.
Excellent.
Locals have gathered around him, organising town hall meetings and a social media campaign.
I can promise you there'll be astroturfers, change agents, etc., in on the ground that came out of nowhere, blah, 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 and a few locals, Masonic or otherwise, with obligations, etc., or Eastern Star, or, Theosophists or New Age movement, but either way, all sides will be controlled. I'm not saying the farmer is. He's obviously genuine in his concern about, his livelihood's gone out the window. And I reckon a lot of locals will be absolutely vexed for him and absolutely want to support him. But you've got to question who comes out of nowhere in many instances, purporting to look after their best interests and fight for them. But, when you actually see them in action...
Would you acknowledge there is a climate emergency out there?
Yeah, I'm guessing it's the BBC, but I could be wrong. It could be Channel 4 or whoever. Anyway, let's carry on. But yeah, this is, for example, somebody who's supposed to be representing the interests of the farmer, etc. But,
There
we need
is.
greener energy.
Yeah, there is.
And we're hugely behind green energy.
And we're hugely behind green energy. When has historically any of this green energy shit worked effectively? The only time that solar panels make a lot of sense is people, for example, who are on trawler yachts, as a source of energy if all else fails, and so many things, at least they can run for, limited periods, being able to heat something or cook something or keep something cold or, so many things like that. Or places in the middle of nowhere with lots of solar panels, but they still have a very, very bare minimum life as regards their energy use, and they've got to be so careful, and they've got other methods of heating, and you name it, yeah. Those type of people, absolutely, yeah. But not on bloody arable farmland. No way.
We really do support...
Well, you say that, but you don't want it in your view.
No, we don't.
Well, I mean, who is this bought and paid for tosser? But, journalism.
Yeah, and we're hugely behind green energy. We really do support...
Well, you say that, but you don't want it in your view.
No, we don't want it on rural agricultural work.
You don't want it in your view. He's not. He's taken away the emphasis on, actually arable farmland. No, it's about, because he's basically essentially saying, they're NIMBYs, not in our backyards, blah blah blah.
In land, not on land that is in use. It's being used to support businesses. It's being to support our villages and our towns. It's part of the food chain. Children from local schools come and visit it. And Andrew has worked so hard through his life to support this livelihood that he has. It's really unfair that that's taken away when there's plenty of other places for those solar panels to go.
But is it reasonable to say that our countryside should sort of be preserved as a single moment and not change?
No, I think as developers, they push for more sites and they push for higher targets and bigger financial gain. It's the small local villages that are the ones suffering, and it's not the villages that are at fault. It's big kind of national government targets, and we all agree that green energy is the way forward.
See where I'm going? Yeah, and that's supposed to be opposing. That's there that individual as an example is there to defend. Meanwhile, at the same time saying, "Oh no, we're totally behind green this and that," and the companies aren't. They're not doing it because they're quite literally an interconnected death cult. I mean, I'm not expecting her to say that, but I mean, look at their very actions. Why the fuck would you put a whole bunch of solar panels and more by the day on arable farmland, and then add to that, through a situation that absolutely could be avoided, i.e., monitoring and defending borders, i.e. border guards, actually, the thing that worked for fucking centuries, the defense of our borders. Well, no, just ding yourself, call yourself whatever, throw that passport at the Four Winds and we'll give you a 4-star hotel. Oh, we're running out of them. And, of course, they're first on the housing list. And, of course, so let's build on arable farmland. They're doing that so many places around the UK. So essentially what I'm saying is, don't just be concerned that the fact that they're putting solar panels on arable farmland, they're building shitty properties on arable farmland. And once that's done, especially with the properties on arable farmland, Yeah? It's tough to change it back. And that's part of it. Yeah? This is absolutely about the artificial scarcity of food. That's what this is about. That's absolutely what it's about. Deliberately created food shortages. That's what's coming, and all while masquerading as the righteous and saving Gaia, Mother Earth. Seriously. People need to grow up and realise what the hell they're actually looking at, and just, realise that not everybody that's coming to, group setting, that's a terrible plight. We'll get in charge of the PR. We'll fight your case. We'll do, and it never seems to fucking work, does it? And that's what they're there to do. Seriously. And I'll speak to you soon.